Aloha Maikako. My name is Dyson Chee. I'm a youth activist, 19 years old, living in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I'm here to share about the importance of policy when it comes down to plastic pollution and climate change. So as the advocacy director for HYCC, my job revolves around policy, and HYCC is a completely 100% youth-led organization in Hawaii. But before I go a little more into that, I should share my story. Some random person talking to you about policy, climate change, and plastic pollution. So my story, for me, it really starts with the ocean. Growing up and living in Hawaii, you're completely surrounded by the ocean. And for me, the ocean was basically my second home. That is how much time I spent in it, and that is how much I loved it. And this picture that you see, this was actually taken in Japan. A lot of times when people go to Japan, you might think of cherry blossoms, you might think of seafood, you might think of like Mount Fuji. But no, for me, I would go to Japan and I'm like, I'm gonna go see the submarine. That is how much I loved the ocean, and that this here is little I'm thinking maybe 8, 9-year-old me. So that's where my story starts, with the ocean. And as I mentioned, because I spent so much time in the ocean, I grew this really close connection. With that connection, though, also came the ability to see firsthand a lot of the issues that were impacting the ocean. I would go into the ocean and usually people expect to see things like fish, like coral. Maybe if you're lucky, you get to see a sea turtle or a stingray. And that's what I expected to see when I went into the ocean. Unfortunately, that wasn't always the case. Sometimes I went into the ocean, and instead of seeing any of those natural things, I saw things like, plastics everywhere, basically. I mean, plastic straws, plastic utensils, fishing nets, boxes, all the plastic gunk that you could think of that ends up in the ocean. And at first I thought, okay, well, it's just small little plastic things. It's not a big deal. But as time went by, it just became more and more and more numerous, and it just became impossible to ignore the plastic that was choking the ocean. And remember, this is the ocean that I love. It's my second home. It's the place that I grew up in. And I have so many amazing memories from the ocean. And it was really sad for me to see that ocean, slowly getting turned into more or less what was a junk pile. Now, thankfully, it wasn't all gloom and doom, though. The issue of plastic pollution was getting quite a lot of attention locally, and I think globally as well. And people were also beginning to tie the issue of plastic pollution in climate change. We're going to see was really important for the work that I do around policy and civic engagement. So to fast forward a bit, at the time when plastic pollution kind of first came into my awareness, I was about 13, 14, 15 years old. Fast forward a little bit to when I was 17 years old. In our city council, in our local government, there was a bill that got introduced, a bill called Bill 40. And yeah, I know it sounds really boring, but trust me, you're going to want to listen to this because it's extremely important and extremely exciting. What Bill 40 does is it banned a variety of single-use and disposable plastics, plastic straws, utensils, polystyrene, cups, lids, baran, the little green grass sushi thing. It was really comprehensive and holistic. And that bill was introduced. A lot of people, were skeptical that this bill's going to pass. We tried passing bills that had only taken on, just plastic straws, just polystyrene, styrofoam, and those had failed. So there was a decent amount of skepticism on whether Bill 40 would even pass or not. But nonprofit organizations, businesses who cared about the environment and the people, youth in particular, as you can see in this picture, banded together, and we ended up pushing hard for Bill 40 to pass. And that collective effort really made a tremendous difference. And what I want to highlight here is the youth effort that came together. This signature scroll that you can see, all the youth holding up in solidarity at the hearing, That signature scroll contained the signatures of over 1,500 youth who couldn't make it to the hearings in person, but wanted to share that they supported Bill 40. So they signed the scroll saying, I support Bill 40 and I want to see it pass. And the youth who were present at that hearing, we held up the scroll and we presented it to the council members to say, hey, we, the youth, are united behind Bill 40. We are the future generation, and we want to see you pass this bill because our future depends on it. Lo and behold, in December of 2019, Bill 40 passes, and it was signed into law. So now, if you ever visit Oahu, which is what the city and county of Honolulu encompasses, that's the island that I live on, you'll notice that there's no more single-use plastic utensils, straws, stirrers, and pretty soon in 2022, it'll also include polystyrene, cups, and lids. So you can look forward to that next time you travel to Oahu. And reminder, this is a great example of the collective power we have as youth to be able to make institutional change in our governments. To kind of add on another note, one of the council members, at least one, if not a few of the council members, were either on the wall or going to vote no against Bill 40. But by the time the final hearing came around, there were so many youth, so many community members who supported Bill 40 that they ended up changing their mind and saying, you know what, we support Bill 40, we're going to vote to let it pass instead. That is how powerful our collective voices can be. And now, as I was mentioning earlier, the importance of plastic pollution and climate change tying into this is that one of the organizations that supported Bill 40 and helped to contribute to its passage was the Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition, which is the organization that I am now the advocacy director for. And Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition, as the name suggests, they primarily focus around climate change. But ultimately, because plastic pollution and climate change are interconnected issues, and you can't really combat one without combating the other, HYCC, Hawaii Youth Climate Coalition, got involved with Bill 40, and that really helped to pass the bill. One of the projects that we're working on right now is something called the School or Club Network Program. And basically, the idea of this program is that there's a lot of clubs that get created at schools, but what happens sometimes is that when the founders of those clubs, they graduate from high school or graduate from middle school, and there's no one else to lead the club, it kind of falls apart. And what HYCC is doing is we're saying, okay, well, you know what? We could be a central hub for all of these different school clubs, so that way, even after the founders leave, there can still be a place for all the club members from all the different clubs around the islands to network and to connect with each other. So that way they feel like they're a part of a bigger community that can make a difference. That's the kind of organizing we did to get Bill 40 passed. And now that we're actually institutionalizing it with this club network, we're hoping that we can continue to get more of those types of successes and to get more youth engaged with the civic and political processes. So that's it for my presentation. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me share some of my mana'o or knowledge and opinions on civic engagement and getting youth involved. If you need to contact me, please do not hesitate to do so. You're welcome to reach out to the organization at Instagram or via email, or you can reach out to me personally via both platforms as well. And thank you so much. Mahalo.